The U.S. Department of Energy is cleaning up the Oak Ridge Reservation of residual hazardous and radioactive contamination left over as a result of decades of nuclear energy research. Much of that work has been influenced by the Oak Ridge Site-Specific Advisory Board, a citizens panel that provides independent advice and recommendations on DOE's cleanup operations. You're welcome to attend the meetings and be part of this important work. For more information,
Well, let me welcome everybody to our monthly meeting from Arizona. Chris and I are out here at the conference. We've got a lot of good information that we've gathered while we've been here, and more, I'm sure, to come. Glad that y'all could join us, even though we're not there in person. We appreciate y'all being here. I'm going to turn it over to our federal and state representatives. Melissa, do you have anything?
Yes, thank you. I appreciate it, Amy. We appreciate your time and commitment to the board. Before I get started, I wanted to make new member introductions. Tonight, we only have one new member here. It's Tanya Shannon. She lives in Wartburg and works in accounts payable in the finance department for Morgan County. She also serves as a funeral director through Service Corps International. So welcome, Tanya. We're so glad you're here with us. We appreciate your interest in our work and the time you're dedicating for this service. So welcome, Tanya. Also, I have just a couple updates that we had since our February meeting. We're happy to announce that Congress just passed its budget for 2024. It's the biggest ever for OREM, and we're really excited about that. Our 2023 budget was Okay, I'll have to do that in a minute. Our 2023 budget was $637 million, and our 2024 budget is going to be $694 million. It's very timely that we've got this information because Karen will discuss more of that in her presentation. Also want to let you know that EM headquarters released its strategic vision for 2024 and through 2034. There's a 10-year look ahead for the projects for Oak Ridge, expects to complete over that span. And Shelley and Sarah have the links, and they'll be sending the full document out to you via email. And lastly, we started the second phase of the EMDF project. That was the topic for last month's meeting. The crews have started field work for the groundwater field demonstration study. Once those demonstration is up and running, we'll be able to gather data for 2 wet seasons to help us finalize the design for the EMDF. And before I close out, it looks like Rachel Stewart, she has joined us online.
And so is Ryan, has just made it.
Okay.
Sorry.
Okay. Rachel is a recent graduate with a bachelor's in college scholars with an emphasis on environmental justice and radioactive waste management.
Oh, wow.
She previously interned at ORNL and the Nuclear Threat Initiative in Washington, D.C. Welcome, Rachel. And then we have Ryan. And Ryan, I really wanted to see you beforehand so I could get your last name pronunciation.
I'd like for you to take a stab at it.
So is
Both.
Ryan part right?
Okay, how about any other take? Okay, I like that. It's Rayon Bouillon.
Rayon Bouillon,
You
okay.
can call me Ray.
Okay. Ray lives in Oak Ridge and is an NDA engineer for CNS at Y12. He previously served in the U.S. Navy and is a recent graduate with a bachelor's in nuclear energy engineering technology. Welcome, Ray. I appreciate having you here, and welcome, Rachel. I don't see you online, but I've been told you're there. Okay, I see you now. I'm looking at all the names and going, this doesn't match up. Okay, thank you. That's all the comments I have. I'll turn it over to the next speaker.
Okay, so
I have a question. You said 2 wet seasons demo on the EMDF?
Yes.
Is that, okay, so, all right.
Yeah, we go through 2 seasons.
Okay, just one.
so is Roger online, Shelley?
No, Roger's not here.
Okay, just wanted to make sure.
Okay.
So then we'll move on. Is Samantha online?
I have not seen an EPA person come on.
Okay, so then I guess the last one we've got is Christoph. And I
Good
know he's
evening.
there hurting.
Good evening, pleasure being here with you guys. I have no announcements, no comments.
Thank you, Christoph.
You're welcome.
And welcome to the new board members that Melissa introduced. We really appreciate y'all coming on board and look forward to meeting you in person at the next meeting, and look forward to working with you. We will now have the introduction of our presenter.
Karen Thompson is the branch chief for the Planning and Baseline Management Branch for the Oak Ridge Office of Environment Management. In this capacity, she supports the division director and associate director of the Planning and Execution Division and integrated project teams in strategic planning, budget development, and performance tracking and reporting. Previously to her selection in November 2014, she was the project control lead for the East Tennessee Technology Park work scope. She has also served as the K-25 Historic Preservation Coordinator between July 2012 and June 2015.
So, Ms. Karen, I'm going to turn the meeting over to you.
Thank you. See if I can operate this thing. The timing of today's presentation is both fortunate and unfortunate. It's fortunate because we had last week the president's budget for 25 came out, and then the Congress signed the 24 enacted. So the presentation details don't show those. We have to sit there. We have a clearance process for and the volumes.
So we can hear it. Sorry.
We haven't had time to get the slides updated since then, and the whole volumes are available. I'm actually going to send the links to the actual legislation and the president's budget over so you guys can see it. And we'll send that out to you. The presentation looks a little bit behind, but I'm going to try to go through everything to make sure you get all the information you need. So a quick overview of the federal budget process. Basically, each department submits a budget to the Office of Management and Budget. Prior to that first step, all of the program offices, which Oak Ridge EM is a field office for a program office. Each of those offices compile a budget, and then they send up to EM headquarters. They compile a program budget. All of the programs in the Department of Energy do that same step, and then each cabinet department sends a budget to the Office of Management and Budget. OMB actually consolidates all of those departmental budgets. They look at the budgets, and in the bottom part, you can see kind of the process for each of the agencies. And during the OMB's review, they actually look through to make sure that the president's priorities and the administration's priorities are reflected in the budget. And they actually go through, and then in the fall timeframe, winter timeframe, we get something called a pass back. And what that is basically OMB's markup of the department's budget. Sometimes there is no markup, and sometimes just depends. And then there's an opportunity for an appeal. So say something that you really needed to do wasn't included in the budget, you have an opportunity to go back. And that's the internal process. So OMB, after all that process is finished, they actually send the budget for all of the agencies to the president. The president signs it and sends it to Congress. And then the congressional process kicks in. Basically, each subcommittee, the subcommittee in the Senate and in the House develops a bill. And then they go back and forth until they reach an agreement on a bill. And hopefully that happens by September 30th, but most of the time it does not. And so that's the process. And then once all that the bills are resolved through a process called conference, then, the president signs the bill into law, and then we get it back as the budget. And that's what those links that I'm gonna send to you, you can click in there. You'll be able to see the actual language. It looks just like any other law. So, but before all of that happens, in OREM, we actually build a budget, that is for a life cycle. So our budget includes all of our work. We have a life cycle plan, and our life cycle plan is consistent with our FFA agreements. And basically we look at everything we have to do, we prioritize it. We identify in the budget process, we identify differences in, say we had something planned and then there was a change in the field, or we discovered some kind of contaminant or something we didn't know about. We would actually account for that during the budget development process, the best that we can to estimate that. And then we go through and prioritize the work, and we separate it kind of into 4 different categories. The first category is, the first thing that we do is say, what does it take to maintain safe and compliant operations? There are things that we have to do that, like surveillance and maintenance activities that we have to do regardless of if we're actually being able to do cleanup. And that's the first thing we prioritize. Legal requirements, we prioritize those first. And then the second thing that we look at is, are there regulatory milestones associated with that work? And then that's the second priority. And then we look at things that we need to enable future work. Like a good example of enabling infrastructure is construction of the Outfall 200 and the on-site surplus cell. We need those things to do all of our work in the future, so we prioritize it that way. And then the last thing is to continue ongoing cleanup activities. And we try to make a plan that's kind of consistent and levelizes our workforce and allows us to just keep plugging along and doing good things. And then we sequence the work with the funding targets and the program's performance. We sequence the work to make sure that we account for, we get basically a number that says plan to this number, and we adjust the work scope to fit within that number, and using those criteria. And then we look and say, okay, do we have enough to do our requirements, or are we going to have impacts? And we take the difference between our requirements and what we have funding for, and we quantify what those impacts are. So that's generally the process on our side.
Do you leave leverage in that process if someone can't justify their budget at another site, or if you get idea from headquarters that it may be extra funding available? Do you have a process to take care of additional funding that you might get?
Our process, we can move work in and out based on our prioritization. We use that same prioritization scheme to determine if we get extra money or if we don't get enough money. But the deciding about other sites happens at the headquarters level.
Okay.
And that would be the field managers all get together, and it's kind of a trade-off. I mean, you got important work going on all across the country, and I wouldn't have the job of trying to prioritize across all the sites. But they basically get together and decide using very similar criteria. EM headquarters has a criteria of what's important. That's something you can see in that strategic plan that Melissa's going to share, and basically the prioritization. And so
I think the reason why you got such a great budget increase for this site is because of what I'm talking about. Other sites are not performing as well as OREM, and therefore your budget went up and theirs may not have.
Well, we've seen a steady increase in the
Yeah.
last couple of years. I'm sure it doesn't hurt.
You've earned it.
So
Yeah, absolutely.
being able to perform, it does help, I think, with just also knowing you have a good performing contractor, you have good estimates. It's just a lot easier to do my job when those things align.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, I'm sure it doesn't hurt. So. OREM's priorities, and these haven't changed, and these pretty closely align from what I could tell with, the priorities that you guys have submitted in the last couple of years. But, our number one priority, right, is the closure of ETTP. We're working toward that, demolition of excess contaminated facilities at ORNL and Y12. The infrastructure that I spoke of earlier, we need to get outfall 200 and EMDF constructed. And then to disposition the U-233 materials, to disposition the Transier Annex, the CH and the contact handled and remote handled in the sledges. And then to maintain and operate facilities that we have at ORNL and Y12, like the liquid gases and process waste operation systems in the landfills. So. And this is very hard to see, so I'm looking over. Yeah, so this is the actually kind of old news that I talked about, but this was the president's budget for Oak Ridge, which was $635 million for 24. And that was out of an $8.2 billion request for EM. And basically, we got right at a $60 million increase to that. So we got 694 in 24. So that's some of, I think we've got some really good support from Congress, which has been very helpful to get work done. So, and then this, I'm going to kind of go through this. I don't have the specific details because the volume hasn't come out for 24. The actual breakdown hasn't got republished, and when that'll be in the links whenever you guys get those. But basically, you'll see that in defense funding, we're going to continue U-233 down Blendon. We're going to in 13B, we're going to continue processing and shipping Transier Annex to WIP for, this is a little too, so sorry, for nuclear facility D&D, which is cleanup of 41 and 42, PBS 41 and 42, Y12 and ORNL cleanup. That is where we're actually operating the landfills and EMWMF. We have the liquid gases and process waste operations, and then we're continuing cleanup to the high risk facilities, at ORNL and Y12. And we're getting ready to start Alpha 2 demo hopefully soon. And we've taken down quite a few buildings in Central Campus. And we're just continuing on with that work that we have planned. And then we have technology development activities that are ongoing that are part of this budget that are actually for looking at mercury and how to better handle mercury and clean up. And then for the regulatory community and regulatory support that funds the TDEC operations and that kind of thing, their assistance to us and for oversight, monitoring, that kind of thing. And then we are, of course, continuing construction of EMDF and Outfall 200 And then, safeguards and security activities, at all of the EM, that funds EM activities at all three sites. And so, that is what we are funding with the defense portion of, the budget. And I don't have the breakout, but I can get that for you guys. And that's when I talk about the fortunate timing. So that's kind of where we are with all of that. And then, and this is, I apologize, this is very small, but it's worse on there. And then the D&D fund, we continue to get funding in the D&D fund. That is, funding that is for cleaning up uranium enrichment D&D facilities. There's only 3 sites that get that funding: Oak Ridge, ETTP, Portsmouth, and Paducah. And all of the cleanup, just about, except for the centrifuge facilities, at ETTP were done. The early part of the centrifuge facilities were all done with this funding. And we continue to get, funding to finish ETTP. And, right now we're doing, characterization, and slab and soil and, removal, and some groundwater remediation stuff. We've got, we've got money that we need to continue to do that, to work toward closure of ETCP. And then this is also the fund where the pensions and post-retirement life and medical is funded. And so that is, and what you have here is an excerpt from the actual budget that, was delivered to the Hill. But like I said, we'll get you the links. And then the next slide's really, kind of a little outdated, but, the 24 budget, at the time that we got this cleared was under continual resolution, but it was, like I said, signed last week, and we got 695 million. The 25 president's budget is 657, which is a really good starting point. And what we need is you to send us your priorities. We do look at those. I actually went through the ones that you had sent before and kind of tried to make sure that I talked a little bit about what you guys had talked about here. And we, this is very valuable information, and we do share it. And so we would like for you guys to send us your 26, because we're getting ready to do the formulation of 26. So, and that's all I have.
How much was the D&D funding?
I don't actually have the breakout yet. I don't have it here, but it was enough to do the work. It was consistent with our request. Probably, I think it was a little bit higher than this, but I can get that. I'm sending you guys the link to the actual legislation so you can look at it. Because they come out in big volumes, but they haven't released it. So.
Thank you, Karen. We'll go to questions, first in the room, and Harriet, I'm going to turn that over to you since you are in the room, and you can direct to whoever's asking questions, and Shelley can direct to you who is actually online asking questions, if that's okay.
Perfect, works. See a question from Mary.
So I noticed that, and I'm glad the number one priority is to close ETTP. And back in November, a gentleman from the community stood up here before us. We weren't talking about this at the time, so we kind of turfed it off to this meeting about budget. He was very complimentary to OREM and the work they've done cleaning up the chemical contaminants in the water. He gave a few examples of how the wildlife was thriving there. But then he showed us, and I know you can't see this, but you guys might remember if you were at that meeting, he showed us over a dozen pictures, physical obstacles in the water, huge, I don't know, cement pilings and off ramps and just big stuff. And he was concerned that that all gets cleaned up too before we pass it on to whoever And so I'm just wondering, that's a long way to preface my question, but is there funding in the budget to clean up this kind of stuff too?
Well, I mean, there is money for closure. Our plan includes closure and it includes cleaning up random, specifically to that, I can't speak to, but, that, our contractor walks down the area, they look at that kind of thing, and that all goes into what we contract and what we plan.
So it's more than just the chemical contaminants.
Oh,
It would
yes,
be the
ma'am.
physical junk. in the
We're
water.
actually cleaning up, I mean, there's a whole plan for cleaning all that up. I can't speak specifically to what they plan to clean up, but I know that, our plan is to eventually transfer that land and we have to make it into something somebody will want before you can do that. So our plan includes that. So,
I think he'll be relieved to hear that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
yeah, and I'm sure that, probably there'll be an ETTP session at one point.
Yeah, there will be, and I think those have already been set, those might.
Okay, okay.
I just didn't hear the conversation, but I think you were saying that is in the process already. Yeah, okay.
I was asking her if there was gonna be an ETT. I know usually the FPDs come and talk to you guys every year. And I was asking her if
Yeah.
ETTP was gonna do that.
And this year, our biggest thing is going to be on groundwater. But there'll be an ETDP session soon, but not necessarily this.
Okay, good. Harold, yeah.
Yeah, my question, the budget derivation that you just talked about, did it include capital projects as well?
Well, EMDF and outfall, 200 are both capital projects.
Yeah.
They're line items, both of them.
So that wasn't included in the numbers.
They were, you just can't see it.
Oh, okay, you're right. I
If you
couldn't-
get the actual slides, you can,
Oh,
it's,
okay.
they're just,
I
you
just
can
wanted to
see
make
it, and they're
sure.
down in the defense section down here, and they have a weird number. They'll have a number that's the budget year, and it'll have a D, which is defense, and then it'll have a sequential number. So that is how you tell if it's a line item in the statement.
Mary? You got it?
Congratulations on getting more money. I wasn't here when you put together the 2025 budget request. Can I ask what it was?
The 25 budget.
You got 694, I think you said. What?
Oh, that's 24, and we had, it was 635.
You asked for 635.
That was the president's budget. Yes, ma'am.
Awesome.
That's great.
Congratulations.
Wish I could-
It's enough to continue all of our ongoing activities.
You got to put the money where the performance is.
There-
That's right.
Oak Ridge is making it happen, so that's how it
actually-
should be.
We should include that in the recommendation somehow.
I think so too.
The fact that our performance has exceeded all expectations, and that's the reason why we got this budget increase, and we want that trend to continue.
And now we know that
We're
they'll
working on
do it. We'll do it. You know, they'll do it. Maybe it's not so far-fetched after all here.
Exactly. Yeah, performance-based, exactly.
Now, here's where I have an issue. Your me, because I don't know who you are yet.
Sure, right.
Right, all right.
Hi, yes, other than the funding for technology, I suppose, cleaning up the mercury issue, environment, in our environment. Is there any active projects that are being funded towards the cleanup?
Of mercury?
Correct.
Yes, well, we're actually constructing an outfall 200, which is a mercury treatment facility. And we are doing that before we do some final cleanup on some facilities that really we have to need it in place before we do. And then the technology development is specifically to do studies of how we can better address mercury. So those are the two big things we have going on right now with that.
Anything specifically happening to Melton Hill Lake?
I don't think we have anything going on at Mountain Hill right now,
Okay,
so
okay.
Yeah.
It does contain mercury.
we have a cleanup contract. We just got a bunch of task orders awarded for, and they go out several years, but I'm not super familiar with what all the scope is exactly in that, each of those tasks, so.
Tom.
What is the projected operational date of the mercury treatment facility?
They're actually replanning that right now. And that replanning's gonna go through the summer, and I don't think they actually have it. Currently it's planned to be operational, I think in 25, but we're replanning it right now. You know, it transitioned.
Okay, so the answer is we thought it was gonna be 25, but now we think it's gonna be something else.
Well, I don't know yet. They're actually in the process of replanning it right now.
We were on one of our tours, and they said that, that question came up and they said it might be like about a 2-year delay, roughly.
Yeah.
Give or take 5 years.
Yeah.
That's government work.
But then that would lead to another question. That leads to another question of how's the budget on that facility going?
Well,
Time is money.
we got enough money to continue it. I mean, we requested funding to continue the construction, and we got dollars to do that in 24 and planned in 25.
Okay.
That's what you're asking?
Sort of.
Okay.
But yes, I understand, once it gets started, it's gonna get finished. But my question specifically would be, okay, when we first planned this, we thought it was gonna be online in 2025 and it was gonna cost this much money.
Yes.
The follow-up question to that is, okay, now, as of, and whatever truing up has to be done, is understandable, but now, currently, what is the completion date and how's it working on budget?
So.
Because I think that helps us on the front end of how much confidence you put, that one might put in a budget number. Let me put it that way. I did not, me, not this committee, not anybody, but one might put in a budget number is, okay, well, on this specific project, this is what we thought, and this is where we are, and this is what we think is gonna happen. And that just kind of helps me to understand.
I understand. So that project, has had a lot of issues and delays. And that's the reason it's being replanned. It actually transitioned to UCOR to finish the work. And that all of the work to finish, it's not under contract. That's why I can't tell you how much it's gonna cost, because they're in the process of developing those estimates, getting them approved, reviewed. There's a gating system for capital projects.
Would it be appropriate?
All right.
Would it be appropriate for? Would it be appropriate to ask for 6 numbers? Okay, the 6 numbers would be, in the planning stages, we thought it was going to cost this much money and take this much time. As we are now into the project, it appears that it will cost this much money and take this much time. And then as we get to the end of the project, it costs this much money and this much time. And I don't even know if that's an appropriate question.
I mean, I don't think it's an inappropriate question. I think that okay, in the budget volume that I'm gonna send you, there's a table, for line items, there's something in the budget called the project data sheet that has the projections by project in there, and you can see the one for this project.
Yes, ma'am.
But the issue is that there's been a lot of changes, and we haven't evaluated the impact of all of those changes yet. that's what, when I say we're replanning it, that's actually what we're actually in the middle of. So it would be inappropriate for me to guess to make how much that's gonna be, if that makes sense.
That makes perfect sense.
Yes. But you can see where we've requested funding. Now, that's not, it'll have the original value, it'll have the value that was approved and all that. It's in that documentation. Does that help you?
Yes, ma'am, that would help me tremendously. I'm just smart enough to try to ferret it out of,
Out of the document.
out of the document.
Yeah, it's, I mean, you can just search you can search Oak Ridge and it'll go to the section and there's a whole section.
The good news is they're rebaselining it
Yeah.
Yeah,
to, they realize they're gonna have delays. And and the good news is it's also a line item project. So as they rebaseline, they have to fund it.
Well, it's halfway built.
Yeah, but still, my point is, we can recommend as a committee that process does not jeopardize the completion of that project.
there's a formal process for replanning a project and we
Yeah.
follow those processes. So.
So, and I guess this is just a comment more than a question, but my understanding, and I guess that's what you call line item or
Yeah.
capital line, is that I think of it as like a lockbox, that there's a lockbox or almost assured funding
Yeah.
for the mercury treatment facility
Yes,
and for EMDF,
yes.
the new waste site, waste. No, I want.
Like a checkbook, that the only name on it. I mean, if I was describing it more than the funding still goes to the same approval process with Congress. But basically, it goes through before a project is approved, it goes through multiple phases of review. And EM headquarters, as it goes through those phases, depending on the value of the project, it's a very rigorous review process. And there's a lot of different reviewers that look at it. And they basically commit to fund that. But Congress does their own things. I mean, we can request it. We have to, every time we submit the budget, and in the 25 request is where you're gonna find this document. And we have to fill out that document that says, this is our planning needs. This was the original plan. And so during all that process, when they make a line item, what they basically do is say, this project is approved and it is approved to be executed. And it actually, you can't use those dollars for anything else, and you have to spend them a certain way. It's got different, basically, accounts within it, and you have to it's very rigorous. There's a whole, it's a very rigorous process, but it's not a guarantee that they would fund it. But
I do understand there's strong congressional support for those two projects here because of
Right.
what it means to national security and the
Right.
advancement of science for our nation, so that
and
I
we
guess you're right, it's not a guarantee, but it's
But
very
it is.
strongly supported.
But it
Yeah.
is.
Thank you.
I see Rachel up on the board. Thanks for your patience.
Hi, can you hear me? Okay,
Loud-
great. My question was about how long the D&D fund would be available to the Oak Ridge site. You said it was for Oak Ridge, Portsmouth, and Paducah, and I was curious about kind of the longevity of that budget.
So we're planning on, we have work planned up until, I think 29 or 30, fiscal year 29 or 30, for, in the D&D fund.
Okay, and so if projects aren't completed at that point, is there a process for resubmission or?
If we have ongoing work, we'll fund it out of defense funding.
Okay, and then my second question was kind of a follow-up from another person's question about the scope of the mercury treatment project and whether that's primarily, on site on the reservation, or if work kind of extends beyond into any tributaries, bodies of water?
I mean, the mercury treatment facilities to prevent that from happening, but I can't really talk about, I don't know the specifics of, the technology development, activities and what all they're looking at. Brian Henry would probably be the best person. Yeah. So, I'm sorry.
Who
I don't
is,
know
no, that's
that.
okay. I didn't know if it was out of scope or not. I was just curious about learning more about what all is entailed in that project.
Isn't that next
Thank you.
month? Too, isn't that next
Good
month's
point.
topic,
Yeah.
with the aquatic?
We're having the aquatic,
Ecology lab.
ecology lab come in
Yeah.
next time, so they might be able to better answer that question, what they're doing for technology development and how it's impacted.
I didn't mean to take us down a rabbit hole on the mercury treatment facility. However, what I heard earlier was that is a linchpin project. And the wording that I think I heard was to do the other things we need to do.
That's right.
Okay, and so that statement piqued my interest
Okay.
About, okay, so how's that project? That's really what prompted me to say, okay, tell me a little bit more about that project, because from the first time I ever heard about that project, I don't know what all it does, but I do know where Poplar Creek is, and it's like, oh, well, that's a really good idea,
Yeah.
to stop this from happening.
Right. It's an infrastructure project that will allow us to do cleanup in mercury contaminated facilities. And that's why we need it. There's buildings out there that we can demolish now, but there's some buildings that we need that done so we can actually do cleanup work.
Would it be appropriate to call that? I mean, I realize it's got, it appears that way because it's got a separate line item on it, but that is a linchpin project, what I would call it.
I guess, I mean, it's vital infrastructure.
We can use that
Decide-
word.
Yeah,
We can use
Everybody
that word.
speaks a different
yeah.
language. Christoph, yes.
I would call it critical project.
Yeah. Okay.
And on what Karen said is we had an agreement, record decision between DOE, EPA and state of Tennessee that require building of that treatment and having it operational prior to any serious D&D work in the area, which is very much, I would say, critically contaminated with mercury. We needed that plant, before we're gonna start work because there are gonna be releases. We wanted to have all that effluent carrying mercury captured and treated. So this is the critical project. And part of my question on this outfall here, what caught my ear was that the project is being baselined. And just recently, I learned that if the project cost estimates go 50% over the original baseline, the project might be canceled. So are we running any risk of this critical project being canceled if the new baselining and new estimates will go over 50% of the original baseline?
That's actually from the DOE order is where that comes from. And I guess that would be a possibility, but we're certainly not expecting that. Yeah, we're not expecting that. We're actually working with our headquarters people to replan that so we can complete it.
Because if the project will be canceled, here goes, D&D work at Y12.
Yeah, I don't think that's a concern. I don't think that's a concern.
And the state of Tennessee would not be blamed for it,
I think I was the one that said rebaseline. She said replan.
Yeah.
So two different things.
I mean, that's a good question.
Right.
I'd like to say I'm about to get my hazardous waste operator training, and it's gonna be a significant part of my career to perform D&D. So this is giving me a lot of anxiety. Hopefully. It's true, and I just keep my job.
I've been working in this group for 25 years. It gives me anxiety sometimes. It's all good. It's good work and it's valuable work.
More
Hang
than
in there.
just Oak Ridge. All over the country.
Yeah. Samantha,
I don't have a question, but I just wanted to introduce
I
myself.
think you should, yes.
And
Got-
I apologize for being late, but onescience.gov way
Does that tell you anything?
us way far away. So now I'm gonna pin this location on my map, but I moved up here to Oak Ridge on March 1st, and so I'll be attending all of these meetings in person and as well as
Welcome.
meeting with
Same world.
Huey and TDEC. But for those of you that don't know me, I'm the EPA Federal Facility Agreement Project Manager. And what you were earlier talking about the budget and how much work Oak Ridge gets done. I saw that I think Oak Ridge had completed 40% of the completions nationwide for federal facilities in the past few years.
Yeah.
And so Oak Ridge is, I mean, going, full steam ahead, and I'm grateful to be involved in this project.
Welcome.
Is that all the questions?
I see Ray's hand. Is that just a forgotten finger? Rachel, you got your hand up still, or there's no? No.
Oh, no,
Something-
that was just my hand.
Looks like an hand.
Darn.
Oh, sorry. I'm the person that's supposed to find questions and I was staring your screen down and created monsters. I'm sorry.
I appreciate that though.
Amy, if we could we pause? We're a little behind on public comment before we get any more questions.
I don't think she was asking a question. I think we're done.
No, I was asking if there was any more questions because I wasn't going to move on to the public comment yet.
Okay.
Yeah, I see you, Christoph.
I'm the troublemaker today. One question. You mentioned, Karen, that the part of that budgeting process is starting with the life cycle planning. When does the life cycle planning start for a budget year?
Well, we actually, about 10 years ago, developed a plan for all of our work. We basically try to update it whenever we know that there's something that changes. And then the budget cycle, we normally start getting ready to go through and make tweaks to our life cycle plan in the January, February timeframe.
Thank you.
Does that answer? Okay.
Perfect. Thank you.
That's why the timing of you guys sending in your priorities is really important, right? Because we budget 2 years out, so.
I think
Harriet,
that's,
do you see any more?
I see no more questions.
Shelley? I know Samantha has spoken. Has there been anybody else come on that we need to go back to let them comment?
Not as far as I'm aware, but we do have one person wanting to do public comment.
Okay, that's where I was getting ready to go. I just wanted to give our federal and state authorities a chance to talk if they needed to. Okay, we will move into our public comment period. Harriet, I'm gonna let you run that too, since you're right there in the room.
Okay. I see. Luther, yes.
Yeah, I didn't see the questions for the guest here, but I'll save them for the committee meetings.
Sure, we're just,
I'm sorry, what?
can you scooch over like at the corner of the table, please, so that you're on the camera?
We're putting you on the camera. A little further,
That's it.
almost.
I'll get in front of the group here, if you want me to. I'm asking more questions at the committee meeting. Public comment. I'm Luther Gibson. I was a member of the board from 1999 to 2005, board chair from 01 and 02. But public comment make tonight. I did a review of some of that other activities at the other SSABs, and I found a number of interesting goings on. I'll only mention one. The Nevada SSAB has a work plan that includes participation in low-level waste, visual verifications, and facility evaluations at generator sites, as well as observing real-time radiography on waste containers received at the Area 5 waste management complex out there. A facility evaluation of UTRNL has been scheduled for April 23rd to 24th. Interesting. Switching to another thing that might be of interest, the Radiation Exposure Compensation Act is a statute implemented in 1990 to compensate individuals residing or working downwind of the Nevada test site. Workers participate in atmospheric nuclear weapons testing and uranium miners, millers, and ore transporters for cancer and a number of other specified diseases. Senator Josh Hawley of Missouri sponsored a bill that has been passed by the Senate that extends the period for filing claims under the Act. It improves compensation for the workers involved in uranium mining and provides compensation under the Act for claims relating to Manhattan Project waste, whatever that is. In addition to the areas around St. Louis legacy sites where his constituents are, now affected areas include zip codes in Tennessee, namely for Clinton, Oliver Springs, Coalfield, Harriman, Kingston, Norris, Rocky Top, Riceville, Petros, Wartburg, Oakdale, Rockwood, and Oak Ridge. Sorry, Knoxville, you're out. Anyone who was physically present in an area affected, in an affected area for at least 2 years after January 1st, 1949, and contracted a specified disease after such a period of presence is eligible for compensation after certification of their claim by the Attorney General. Physically present means you lived, worked, or went to school in that area. This event, really brings back history and trying to understand what we think about what happened here. There was the health effects or health agreement steering panel formed about 1991. It was followed by a dose reconstruction project, and then there was a FACA chartered board, the Oak Ridge Reservation Health Effects Subcommittee formed, and CDC opened an office in Oak Ridge, and it's about 15 years of community involvement trying to study the past health effects here in this area. So let me see here. The health effects subcommittee met 26 times and had work groups that met more than 125 additional times during all these assessments. So I just find the bill in these areas, namely in Morgan County, Rome County, and Anderson County, to be kind of curious. And and I think some discussion is going to come up, and I think we need to think about what we're going to think about the history and how the effects were here. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Luther. Do we have any other public comment?
Not at this time.
All
We'll
right,
continue accepting it through Monday.
thank you. At this time, I'm going to call for any additions to the agenda. Are there any additions to the agenda? Okay, hearing none. I need a motion to approve the agenda.
Move to.
I second.
I have a motion and a second to approve the agenda. Are there any discussions? All in favor, say aye. Or raise your hand. All opposed? Motion carries to approve the agenda. Do we have any requests for new action items? Not hearing anything.
Quiet, it's quiet.
Then we'll move on. Our next meeting will be at 6 p.m. on April 10th to discuss aquatic ecology research and technology development in East Fork Poplar Creek. That is a mouthful. And at this time, that will end our presentation portion of the meeting. We'll go into the board meeting. If any of our visitors would like to take a moment and we'll give them a moment to leave and then we'll get started on our board. Okay, on to board business. The first thing on the agenda is to approve the previous minutes of the meeting for February 14th. Has everybody had a chance to read those? Are there any
I
additions?
read through them and there were a correction that was suggested was incorporated, so they've been read and corrected.
Okay, so, are there any other additions or corrections to those minutes? Hearing none, I'll take a motion to approve the minutes as corrected. Second,
Second.
or is there any discussion? All in favor of approving the minutes, either raise your hand or say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Minutes are approved. Responses to recommendation and DDFO reports by Melissa.
We don't have any open recommendations, but I did want to address the, what Karen said about our, presentation and how we have to get it approved through headquarters. We have to send that up to headquarters 8 days prior to the meeting, 8 working days prior to the meeting. That presentation goes all the way through the Office of Management and Budget. And once it's gotten approval, we are not allowed to change it at all. So we got the information about the budget right in the midst of that, but they would not let us change it and physically put it on paper because we would have to wait 8 more days for their approval. So that was, I understood her consternation because we wanted to go ahead and update it so you would have that written. But she's going to have the links mailed to us. We will email those out to you. So you'll have those, you'll be able to look at everything. And she is hopeful that by the time we have our 2-week follow-up, that she'll be able to have more details, and answer more specific questions, because we do not have to have that information run up through headquarters. Okay. But I just wanted to address that because it is a little bit difficult with the budget thing when that happens, our hands are tied.
And to clarify it for me, the reason it's in that kind of a flux is because our elected people sit on the budget like they're trying to hatch it.
I can not comment on that.
But I can.
That's all I had.
Approval was much delayed.
Thank you, Melissa. We will now have committee reports, EM stewardship. Mary, that would be you, ma'am.
Okay, yeah, our last committee meeting was on February 28th, and that's when we continued the discussion of ongoing efforts to assure waste capacity. We felt as a group that everything was going smoothly and going well. We saw progress and we decided not to submit a recommendation, nor was one requested of us. So we're done with that for now. But as Melissa reminded me, if any time during the year something comes up that's bugging you about that topic, we can always resurrect and discuss it again and recommend something if we as a group feel it's necessary. So just because we're done now doesn't mean we're done forever. The next meeting for the committee is on March 27th, 2 weeks from today, and we will continue our discussion of this month's topic, which is obviously the budget. With that, we are being requested to make a recommendation. So again, I'll ask those of us who are in that issue group, and if any of the new folks would like to join any of our issue groups, please feel free. It's kind of good to go on all of them if you can, because you'll really learn quickly. But I don't mean to put a commercial together for the issue group improvement. But for those of us who are on this budget, I'd ask if possible to be at that meeting as well, and we certainly will be looking to you to put our recommendation together. So that would be me, Connor, Dill, Jones, McCurdy, and Tuck. Anyone else?
And might I add, This is an excellent one to be a part of because it is the one that we require you to do a recommendation. So it's a good time as a new person or even an older person who's already been on many committees to sit through it because you actually get to see the full process roll out. That doesn't always happen on all the other topics because you might not decide to do a recommendation, but this gives you a good chance to see how the recommendations put together and what's involved.
Thank you, Mary.
You just need,
And as Mary said, oh, sorry, Melissa, go ahead.
I was gonna say, so if you're interested in being on this committee, let Shelley or Sarah know, and they'll add you to it. For the majority of it, even for a new person, you'll be included in all the emails, so you can see all the different back and forth between everybody. That's what being on the committee gets you started, to where you can see all the information that's going back and forth on that particular item. Sorry, I'm done, Amy.
You're fine. Thank you. I was actually getting ready to do that same plug, but thank you for doing that. I appreciate it. Okay, so is there anything else that we need to discuss tonight, Shelley?
Just if the new folks could stay after, if they haven't had their photo taken, and we'll take care of that.
Okay, all right. So new folks stay after, get your picture taken. Shelley likes us to have those. Melissa, do you have anything else before we close out the meeting?
I do not.
Okay. All right. Well, I know there's going to be a lot of emails going back and forth, of course, on this budget. And I'm sure the meeting on the 27th of this month will be very educational, and there will be lots more information on the budget. So I do recommend all that can attend that, please do. That is the Stewardship Committee. And I will take a motion to adjourn.
Hope as such.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor of adjourning, say aye or raise your hand.
Aye.
Thank you for
Motion
weighing
or opposed? Anybody opposed to that? Motion adjourned. We are closed.
Good job, Amy. Good job. Way out west. Whoa.